Hey YouTubers, I know it's late, but the only reason why I actually came live is just because at the moment I kind of just feel like reading like a chapter or two of Art of Racing in the Rain, which is the book that is told from the eyes of the dog Enzo. He's a yellow lab, and he could either be a lab or a golden retriever. They're both kind of the same. One has long hair, one doesn't. I gotten up to chapter 11, and I'm going to start at chapter 12. The way it ended the last, um, you know, at chapter 11 was that what was going on is that Danny had been offered to go race because that's what he likes to do, car racing. He'd been given like a position and a spot on the team, but it would mean that he'd have to leave for like um yeah, he got a seat in the touring car, but it would mean that he'd have to leave for 6 months. And Eve was just becoming sick. Danny and Eve are married. Zoe is their daughter, and Enzo is their dog. But he can kind of smell that there's something going on with Eve because, she's been feeling sick lately. And he didn't like her much when Denny and her first met. But, the years have gone by and he's develop this kind of affection for Eve. So here we go, chapter 12. Eve's condition was elusive and unpredictable. One day she would suffer a headache of crushing magnitude. Another day, debilitating nausea. A third would open with dizziness and end with a dark and angry mood. And these days were never linked together consecutively. Between them would be days or even weeks of relief, life as usual. And then Denny would get a call at work, and he would run to Eve's assistance, drive her home from her job, impose on a friend to follow her in their car, and spend the rest of the day watching helplessly. The intense and arbitrary nature of Eve's affliction was far beyond Denny's grasp. The wailings, the dramatic screaming fits, the falling on the floor in fits of anguish. These are things that only dogs and women understand because we tap into the pain directly. We connect to pain directly from its source. And so it is at once brilliant and brutal and clear, like white hot metal spraying out of a fire hose. We can appreciate the aesthetic while taking the worst of it straight in the face. Men, on the other hand, are all filters and deflectors and time rubies. For men, it's like athlete's foot. Spray the special spray on it, they say, and it goes away. They have no idea that the manifestation of their affliction, the fungus between their hairy toes, is merely a symptom, an indication of a systematic problem. A candida bloom in their bowels, for instance, or some other upset to their system. Suppressing the symptom does nothing but force the true problem to express itself on a deeper level at some other time. Go see a doctor, he said to her. Get some medication. And she howled to the moon in reply. He never understood as I did what she meant when she said that medication would only mask the pain. Hi, Ministry. I am, see? Oh, that's a nice picture of you. Look at you, ya hate. Mhm. This is chapter 12 of The Art of Racing in the Rain. He never understood when she said that if she went to a doctor, the doctor would only invent a disease that would explain why he couldn't help her. And there was so much time between episodes. There was so much hope. Denny was frustrated by his impotence, and in that regard, I could understand his point of view. It's frustrating for me to be unable to speak. Remember, it's told from the dog. To feel that I have so much to say, so many ways I can help, but I'm locked in a soundproof box. a game show isolation booth from which I can see out and can hear what's going on. But they never turn on my microphone and they never let me out. Wow, that is so weird. Earlier today, I was talking to my friend Lemon, and we were talking about like I don't know, weird shit, deep shit. And we were saying, wouldn't it be kind of cool if how I was telling him how I said about doing my show as a mime, and he said, wouldn't it be cool if you could put people in an invisible box? Isn't that weird? And then this book just started talking about that. So weird. Like, how often do you have a conversation like that? And that's just like a obscure thing to say. And then there it is in this book. So weird. I'm sorry. You can't hear me good? Really? That sucks. I mean, yeah, if I move it, you can hear me better. Mm. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me better now? If you knew ministry like I know ministry, you love ministry too. And that's the truth. And then I was doing this whole skit, my freaking dog. So stupid. I don't know. Like I had gone to get Chinese food, just lo mein, nothing great. And so I gave him like a noodle or two. And I'm like, you know how I talk for him. He's like, noodles, huh? Those are good, Mom. And a couple of seconds later, so, a noodle, you say, huh? Just kind of stupid. All right, here we go. So the dog is frustrated. He's talking about a soundproof box. Invisible. Okay. All right. It might drive a person mad. It certainly has driven many a dog mad because he's mad like he can't talk and say, what's going on with Eve because he can smell the cancer or whatever it is, the tumor. The good dog that would never hurt a soul, but is found one day having eaten the face of his master as she slept deeply under the influence of sleeping pills. There was nothing wrong with that dog, except that his mind finally snapped. As awful as it sounds, it happens. It's on the TV news regularly. Myself, I have found ways around the madness. Remember, he's a dog, okay? I work at my human gate, for instance. I practice chewing my food slowly, like people do. I study the television for clues on behavior and to learn how to react in certain situations. In my next life, when I am born again as a person, I will practically be an adult the moment I am plucked from the womb. That's why I like this story because the dog, like, believes that he's going to come back as a person and that he'll find the guy again. It will be all I can do, plucked from the womb with all the preparation I have done. It will be all I can do to wait for my new human body to mature to adulthood so I may excel at all the athletic and intellectual pursuits I hope to enjoy. Denny avoided the madness of his personal sound booth hell by driving through it. There was nothing he could do to make Eve's distress go away, and once he realized that, he made a commitment to do everything else better. Sorry, okay. I'm only reading this chapter. I'm not going to drive anybody crazy with the book or whatever. I don't want to bore people to tears or anything. Okay. Okay, so this isn't about racing. but he uses it like metaphorically, but then he does like to race. Enzo is the dog, he tells us. Often, things happen to race cars in the heat of the race. A square-toothed gear in a transmission may break, suddenly leaving the driver without all of his gears. Or perhaps a clutch fails, brakes go soft from overheating, suspensions break. When faced with one of these problems, the poor driver crashes. The average driver gives up. The great drivers drive through the problem. They figure out a way to continue racing, like in the Luxembourg Grand Prix in 1989, when the Irish racer Kevin Finnerty York finished the race victoriously and later revealed that he had driven the final 20 laps of the race with only two gears. To be able to possess a machine in such a way is the ultimate show of determination and awareness. It makes one realize that the physicality of our world is a boundary to us only if our will is weak. A true champion can accomplish things that a normal person would think impossible. All right, I'm still gonna just finish this chapter and then I'm just gonna leave it up there in case Adair wants to look at it tomorrow or something. I don't know. Maybe I just think people listen to the book, but they might. Who knows? I like the book. But good night, Ministry. Love ya. Then he cut back his hours at work so he could take Zoe to her preschool. In the evenings after dinner, he read to her and helped her learn her numbers and letters. He took over all the grocery shopping and cooking. He took over the cleaning of the house, and he did it all excellently and without complaint. He wanted to relieve Eve of any burden, any job that could cause stress. What he couldn't do, though, with all of the extra he was doing, was continue to engage her in the same playful and physically affectionate way I had grown used to seeing. Thank you. It was impossible for him to do everything. Clearly, he had decided that the care of her. Okay, stop. I see green as gray. I see red as black. Does that make me a bad potential person? If you taught me to read and provided for me the same computer system as someone has provided for Stephen Hawking, I too would write great books. And yet, you don't teach me to read, and you don't give me a computer stick I can push around with my nose to point at the next letter I wish to type. So whose fault is it that I am what I am? Huh. That is true though about dogs, right? We don't give them a computer and like a computer stick. We don't try and see if they're gonna want to type something, right? Danny did not stop loving Eve. He merely delegated his love giving to me. I became the provider of love and comfort by proxy. When she ailed and he took charge of Zoe and whisked her out of the house. Hi, Kelly. I'm sorry. I'm like reading. I know it's kind of corny, but it's this book called Art of Racing in the Rain. I think you might have heard me talk about it, right? Okay, well, Ministry. Well, it's late and I'm reading, and that's probably why they're not around. Who knows, right? I take a day off and they're not around. But it's all right. You guys are here, and that's what matters. Even if you don't like, the reading, but it's told from the dog. And remember, he's like a yellow lab or a golden retriever. His name is Enzo, and he believes that if he's the best dog he can be, he'll come back as a person. So he just watches what goes on in life. Yeah, Friday night tomorrow, you know, whatever. And so the dog started to be able to smell like something sickness going on in the guy's wife. But the dog was there before the guy got married. So he kind of resented Lady Eve, that's his wife. He kind of resented her when she first came around, but as they ended up getting married, Denny and her, and then they have a baby named Zoe, who's like 3 or 4 now, maybe even a little, maybe 5, who knows, I don't know. Um, but now the dog is starting to smell this, like sickness in the wife, and he's frustrated because he can't tell, he can't say anything, can't tell them. So I was just like, so the husband has been taking up a lot of responsibilities of Eve, and when she ailed, and he took charge of Zoe and whisked her out of the house to see one of the many wonderful animated films that they make for children, so that she might not hear the cries of agony from her mother. I stayed behind. He trusted me. He would tell me, "Hi, Dominic." Question mark. I can like. I was just gonna finish the chapter, and then because you said 10, I figured I could like whip through a chapter, and then you could call me. I'm almost done. It's just quick. It's just like the chapter in The Art of Racing in the Rain. I love the book, and I was up to chapter 11 as far as it's reading through 12, because the dog is like, anyway, you have to rewind to hear. The dog can smell what's going on, like the sickness in the wife of the guy, but he can't tell her. And the story is told from the eyes of the dog. So the husband, Benny, is trying to like take the little girl to the movies and stuff to get her, mind off it. And the dog, Enzo, is, there to comfort Eve, even though in the beginning when her and Denny first met, he kind of resented her because he thought she was, like, he's grown to love her. So anyhow, here we go. Um, he would tell me as he and Zoe packed their bottom. Remember, it's the dog thing. He would tell me as he and Zoe packed their bottles of water and their special sandwich cookies without hydrogenated oils that he bought for her at the good market. He would say, "Go take care of her for me, Enzo, please." And I did. I took care of her by curling up at her bedside. I blocked you. No, I didn't. You're right there. Blocked me from where? You're right there. See? Look at you in your little cute shirt. You see yourself? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Mhm. Text? No. Hold on. Mm, No, 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 no. Did you get it? You know how like when you put something in someone's thing, you all, who's all? Just me sitting here reading. You know I like it when you read. I'm gonna go. It's okay. I'm enjoying the book, and I'm all that matters. I'm sure I'm only kidding. Only joking. Just being silly. But have a good night. You can watch the replay tomorrow. But I'm not explaining anymore what I'm doing. I'm reading a book. The dog is telling the story. Yellow retriever, golden retriever, whatever you call them. Everybody picture it. Okay? All right. Everybody. I took care of her by curling up at her bedside, or if she had collapsed on the floor, by curling up next to her there. Often she would hold me close to her, hold me tight to her body, and when she did, she would tell me things about the pain. She got cancer and the dog can smell it. friggin' drops to one. You guys are funny. See, this is really only meant to be the recording for the chapter anyway, so don't worry about it. You guys aren't crushing me or anything. Oh, dude. Yeah, there you go. She's sick. She has something in her head, and the dog can smell it, so he's laying with her. I cannot lie still. I cannot be alone with this. I need to scream and thrash because it stays away when I scream. When I'm silent, it finds me. It tracks me down and pierces me and says, now I've got you. Now you belong to me. Demon, gremlin, poltergeist, ghost, phantom, spirit, shadow, ghoul, devil. People are afraid of them, so they relegate their existence to stories, volumes of books that can be closed and put on the shelf or left behind at a bed and breakfast. They clench their eyes shut so they will see no evil. But trust me when I tell you that the zebra is real. Hi, Ben. Just me and you, Ben, because I'm reading. You know all about the dog. Oh, the other night, by accident, Ben, I ended my live stream when I was trying to drop you the link, just so you know. Ben, tell me the name of, okay, tell me the name of, it's trivia. Miss Piggy's poodle. Remembers Miss Piggy's poodle? Didn't think so. Oops, all right. So I'm going back to my reading, okay? I don't care how queer you guys think I am either by reading. I do this for blind people. The spring finally ground around to us through an exceptionally wet winter, full of gray days and rain and an edgy cold I rarely found rejuvenating. Over the winter, Eve ate poorly and became drawn and pale. When her pain came, she often went for days without eating a bite of food. She never exercised, so her thinness had no tone, black skin over brittle bones. She was wasting away. Jenny was concerned, but Eve never heeded his pleas for her to consult a doctor. A mild case of depression, she would say. He'll try to give her pills, and she doesn't want pills. And one evening after dinner, which was a special one, though I don't remember if it was a birthday or an anniversary, Jenny, oh, well, we don't need to know about this. He's naked. Why is he naked? Isn't this a child's book? Not a child's book, but anyway, they go off. They try to have a baby. We're going to skip that love making scene. And I'm just going on to chapter 13. I don't care. Tracy read chapter 13. You don't care. Because we got to go past 13, right? You can't leave it at 13. That's an unlucky number. They sit in the trees and on the electrical. Remember, the dog is telling this story. Not me. I'm not the dog, but the dog is supposedly wrote it. They sit in the trees and on the electrical wires and on the roof and they watch everything. The sinister little bastards. They cackle with a dark edge like they're mocking you, cawing constantly. They know where you are when you're in the house. They know where you are when you're outside. They're always waiting. The smaller cousin of the raven, they are resentful and angry, bitter at being genetically dwarfed by their brothers. The raven, it is said, is the next step up the evolutionary ladder from man. The raven created man. After all, according to the legends of the Northwest Coast natives, it's interesting to note here that the deity that corresponds with the raven in Plains Indian folklore is the coyote, which is a dog. So it seems to me we are all smashed together at the top of the spiritual food chain. So if the raven created man and the crow is the raven's cousin, where does the crow fit in? The crow fits in the garbage. Very smart and very sly, they are best when they apply their evil little genius to uncapping a garbage can or pecking through some kind of enclosure to get at scrap food. They are scum. Creatures of cluster. Now, I don't feel this way about crows. I like them. But the dog does. Creatures of cluster. They call them a murder when they are in a group. A good word, because when they are together, you want to kill them. I never chase a crow. They hop away, taunting, trying to dupe you into a chase in which you will become injured, trying to get you stuck somewhere far away so they can have their way with the garbage. It's true. Sometimes when I have nightmares, I dream of crows, a murder of them attacking me ruthlessly, cruelly tearing me to shreds. It is the worst. When we first moved to our house, something happened with the crows, and that's why I know they hate me. It's bad to have enemies. Jenny always picks up my leavings in a small, green, biodegradable bag. It's part of what people do as a penance for their need to keep dogs under such strict supervision. They must extract our excrement from between the grass blades with a plastic bag that has been turned inside out. They must grab it with their fingers and handle it. Even though there's a plastic barrier, they never enjoy the task because they can smell it, and their sense of smell lacks the sophistication to discern the subtlety of the layers of scent and their meaning. Denny collected the small crap-filled bags and kept them in a plastic grocery bag. Occasionally, he would dispose of the larger bag in a garbage can in the park up the street. I guess he didn't want to pollute his own garbage can with bags of my feces. I don't know. The crows, who pride themselves on being cousins of the raven and therefore being very smart, love going after a bag of groceries, and they have, on many occasions, gone after a bag on the porch left outside when Denny or Eve brought home more than a few at a time. They can get in and out so fast, maybe find some cookies or something and fly away. On one occasion, when I was young, the crows spotted Eve bringing the groceries home, and they crowded nearby, clustering in a tree just on the edge of the property. So many of them. They were silent, not wanting to draw attention to themselves. But I knew they were there. Eve had parked in the alley, and she made several trips with bags from the car to the porch, then from the porch into the house. The crows watched, and they noticed that Eve had left a bag behind. Well, they are smart, and I have to give them credit, for they didn't move in right away. They watched and waited until Eve went upstairs and undressed and got into the bathtub, as she sometimes did in the afternoon when she had a day off from work. They watched and were sure that the glass-paned kitchen door was closed and locked, so thieves and rapists couldn't get in, and so I couldn't get out. Then they made their move. They swooped in, several of them, and picked up the bag with their beak. One of them goaded me by walking up to the glass and trying to get me to bark. Normally, I would have resisted the urge just to fight them, but knowing what I knew, I barked a few times, enough to make it convincing. They didn't go far. They wanted to taunt me with it. They wanted me to watch them enjoy the treats in the bag. So they stopped inside the yard, on the grass, the whole group of them. They danced around in circles and made faces at me and flapped their wings and called for their friends. They tore open the plastic, and they dove in with all of their beaks to eat the wonderful food and delicious items that were hidden inside. And they ate. They gulped, those stupid birds. They ate from the bag, and they swallowed with glee, and they choked on giant mouthfuls of my shit. My shit. Oh, the looks on their faces. The stunned silence, the indignation, the shaking of heads, and then they flew off to the neighbor up the street with the dribbling fountain so they could wash their beaks. They came back then, clean and mad, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They stood on the back porch and on the back lawn, so thick with crows it was like a massive, undulating layer of tar and feathers. All of their beady eyes trained on me, staring at me, as if to say, come out, little doggy, and we'll peck your eyeballs out. I didn't go out, and they soon left. But when Denny got home from work that day, he looked in the back. Eve was cooking dinner, and Zoe was still little in the high chair. Denny looked outside and said, "Why is there so much bird crap on the deck?" I knew. Given a Stephen Hawking computer, I could have made a good joke of it. He went out and turned on the hose and washed the deck, and he collected the torn poop bags with puzzlement but no inquiry. The trees and telephone wires and electrical wires were heavy with those birds, all of them watching. I didn't go out with him. And when he wanted to go throw the ball, I pretended I was sick and climbed onto my bed and slept. It was a good laugh watching those dumb birds who think they're so smart with their beaks full of dog shit. But as with all things, there were repercussions. Since that time, my nightmares have always contained angry crows, a murder of them. I'd like to go on to chapter 14 because I just like the book. So if anybody doesn't want to hear, you don't have to hear. But once again, I'll say golden retriever named Enzo telling the story. Okay? And he's just talking about his life. He lives with Denny, Eve, that's the adult, and Zoe is the little girl. Chapter 14. The clues were all there. I simply hadn't read them correctly. Over the winter, he had played a video racing game obsessively, which wasn't like him. He had never gotten into racing games, but that winter he played the game every night after Eve went to bed, and he raced on American circuits only. St. Petersburg and Laguna Seca, whatever road, Atlanta and Mid-Ohio. I should have known just from seeing the tracks he was racing. He wasn't playing a video game. He was studying the circuit. He was learning turning points and braking points. I'd heard him talk about how accurate the backgrounds are on these video games, how drivers have found the games can be quite helpful for getting acquainted with new circuits. But I never thought, wow, that's pretty interesting. I never thought that the video games that are giving these race car drivers the opportunity to learn the circuits, like where to brake and all that, and familiarize with the track. I never thought about that. I wonder if prior to having these video games, if they actually had something available for race car drivers that's similar to that, something to, is it simulate or something, the track? And his diet, no alcohol, no sugar, no fried food, his exercise regimen, running several days a week, swimming at the Medgar Evers Pool, lifting weights in the garage. He was lean and strong and ready to do battle in a race car, and I had missed all the signs. But then I believe I had been duped. Because when he came downstairs with his track backpack that day in March, and his suitcase on wheels, and his special helmet and hand device bag, even Zoe seemed to know all about his leaving. He had told them. He hadn't told me. The parting was strange. Zoe was both excited and nervous. Eve was somber, and I was utterly confused. Where was he going? I raised my eyebrows, lifted my ears, and cocked my head. I used every facial gesture at my disposal in an attempt to glean information. Sebring, he said to me, reading my mind the way he does sometimes. I took the seat in the touring car. Didn't I tell you? The touring car. But that was something he said he could never do. We agreed on that. I was at once elated and devastated. A race weekend is at least 3 nights away, sometimes 4 when the event is on the opposite coast. And there are 11 races over an 8-month period. He would be away so much of the time. I was worried about the emotional well-being of those of us left behind. But I am a racer at heart, and a racer will never let something that has already happened affect what is happening now. The news that he had taken the touring car seat and was flying to Sebring to race on ESPN2 was extremely good. He was finally doing what he should be doing when he was supposed to do it. He wasn't waiting or worrying about everyone else. He was looking out for himself. A race car driver must be very selfish. It is a cold truth. Even his family must come second to the race. I wagged my tail enthusiastically, and he smiled at me with a twinkle in his eye. He knew that I understood everything he said. Be good now, he chided me playfully. Watch over the girls. He hugged little Zoe and kissed Eve gently, but as he turned away from her, she launched herself onto his chest and grabbed him tight. She buried herself in his shoulder, her face red with congested tears. Please come back, she said, her words muffled by his mask. Of course I will. Please come back, she repeated. He soothed her. I promise I'll come back in one piece, he said. She shook her head, which was still pressed against his body. I don't care how many pieces, she said. Just promise you'll come back. He quickly glanced at me, as if I could clarify what she was really asking. Did she mean come back alive, or come back and not leave her, or something else entirely? He didn't know. I, however, knew exactly what she meant. Eve wasn't worried about Denny not returning. She was worried about herself. She knew that something was wrong with her, though she didn't know what, and she was afraid it would return in some terrible way when Denny was not with us. I was concerned as well. I couldn't explain this to Denny, but I could resolve to remain steadfast in his absence. I promise, he said, hopefully. After he had gone, Eve closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened her eyes again, she looked at me, and I could see that she had resolved something for herself as well. I insisted he do it, she said to me. I think it will be good for me. It will make me stronger. That was the first race of the series, and the race didn't go well for Denny, though it went fine for Eve, Zoe, and me. We watched it on TV, and Denny qualified in the top third of the field. But shortly into the race, he had to pit because of a cut tire. A crew member had trouble mounting the new wheel, and by the time Denny returned to the race, he was a lap down and never recovered. 24th place. The second race came only a few weeks after the first, and again, Eve, Zoe, and I managed fine. For Denny, the results of the race were very much the same as the first. Spilled fuel that resulted in a stop and go penalty, costing Denny a lap, 30th place. Denny was extremely frustrated. I like the guys, he told us at dinner when he was home for a stretch. They're good people, but they're not good pit crew. They're making mistakes, killing our season. If they would just give me a chance to finish, I'd finish well. Can't you get a new crew? Eve asked. I was in the kitchen next to the dining room. I never stayed in the dining room when they ate out of respect. No one likes a dog under the table looking for crumbs when they're eating. I wish my dog would do that. Yes, story time. So I couldn't see them, but I could hear them. Denny picking up the wooden salad bowl and serving himself more salad. Zoe pushing her chicken nuggets around the plate. Eat them, honey, Eve said. Don't play with them. It's not the quality of the man. Thank you, Ben. You're my friend too. It's not the quality of the man, Denny tried to explain. It's the quality of the team. How do you fix it? Eve asked. You're spending so much time away, it seems like a waste. What's the point of racing if you can't finish? Zoe, you've only had two bites. Eat. The crunching of romaine, Zoe drinking from her sippy cup. Practice, Benny said. Practice, practice, practice. When will you practice? They want me to go down to Infineon whatever that is, next week. Work with the Apex Force people. Work hard with the pit crew so there are no more mistakes. The sponsors are getting frustrated. Eve fell silent. Next week is your week off, she said finally. I won't be gone long, 3 or 4 days. Good salad. Did you make the dressing yourself? I couldn't read their body language because I couldn't see them, but there are some things a dog can sense: tension, fear, anxiety. These states of being are the result of a chemical release inside the human body. They are totally physiological. In other words, involuntary. Involuntary. People like to think they have evolved beyond instinct, but in fact, they still have fight or flight responses to stimuli. And when their bodies respond, I can smell the chemical release from their pituitary gland. For instance, adrenaline has a very specific odor, which is not so much smelled but tasted. I know a person can't understand that concept, but that's the best way to describe it. The taste of an alkaline on the back of my tongue. From my position on the kitchen floor, I could taste Eve's adrenaline. Clearly, she had steeled herself for Denny's racing absences. She was not prepared for his impromptu practices in Sonoma, and she was angry and afraid. I heard chair legs scrape as the chair was being pushed back. I heard plates being stacked, flatware nervously gathered. Eat your nugget, Eve said again, this time sternly. I'm full, Zoe declared. You haven't eaten anything. How can you be full? I don't like nuggets. You're not leaving the table until you eat your nugget. I don't like nuggets, Zoe shrieked, and suddenly the world was a very dark place. Anxiety, anticipation, excitement, all these emotions have a distinctive smell, many of which were exuding from the dining room at that moment. After a long silence, Denny said, I'll make you a hot dog. No, you said. She'll eat the nugget. She likes nuggets and she's just being difficult. Eat. Another pause, and then the sound of a child gagging. Denny almost laughed. I'll make her a hot dog, he said again. She's going to eat the goddamn nugget, you shouted. She doesn't like the nugget. I'll make her a hot dog, Denny replied firmly. No, you won't. She likes the nuggets. She's just doing this because you're here. I'm not making a new dinner every time she decides she doesn't like something. She asked for the fucking nugget. Now she'll eat the fucking nugget. Damn. Is somebody messing with me? I didn't think so. We're just reading the story. Fury has a very distinctive smell, too. Zoe started to cry. I went to the door and looked in. Eve was standing at the head of the table, her face red and pinched. Zoe was sobbing into her nuggets. Denny stood to make himself seem bigger. It's important for the alpha to be bigger. Often, just posturing can get a member of the pack to back down. You're overreacting, he said. Why don't you go lie down and let me finish up here? You always take her side, Eve barked. Hi, Dominic. I don't know if he knows I'm reading the story. I think he just means the people that have been messing with me. He's a good friend. Just like good friends. You guys are fun. I just want her to have a dinner she'll eat. Fine, Eve hissed. I'll make her a hot dog then. He's talking to, I think he's just addressing, like, I don't know, like maybe he saw something mean somewhere in a comment or something. Unless he thinks I'm really like arguing about nuggets. But I think he knows I'm reading. Has anybody been saying anything? I haven't seen, like, if anybody said anything mean in the chat or something that I didn't notice. I don't know. Uh, anyhow. Oh, see, he's just being sweet. No, he knows you. No, he just means, in general. He's posturing. Posturing. Hmm. You're still listening to the story, though, right, Dominic? I mean, you know you love it. You know you love it. The haters. See, he said no. The haters he was talking to. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. What are they doing there? Roscoe. All right. I'll be right back. You know what? It wasn't even Roscoe. It was Tucker. Tucker. So ornery for a cat. Ornery. He whirled from the table and almost crushed me. No homo. No homo. No. I haven't heard of that in ages. I used to see that all the time on my friend's channel when they would like, sum up each other kind of, friends. They'd be like, no homo, no homo. Not in a bad way. You know what I'm saying. Just whatever. Let me just this is this chapter is how many more pages? Not many more pages. I'm just gonna whip right through it, okay? I whip right through it. Eve whirled from the table and almost crushed me when she burst into the kitchen. She threw open the freezer door and snatched a packet of hot dogs, turned on the faucet, and held the package under the running water. She grabbed a knife from the block and stabbed into the package. That's when the evening turned from one filled with forgettable arguments to one marked by undeniable and permanent evidence. As if the knife had a will of its own and wanted to get involved in the ruckus, the blade leapt from the wet frozen package and swiped deep and clean into the fleshy webbing of Eve's left palm between her thumb and finger. Has anybody ever no, I know, it's funny, yeah. Has anybody ever cut that part? Like the web right between their freaking thumb and finger? Like, oh god, awful. I took pictures there. Or the knife clattered into the sink and Eve grabbed her hand with a wail. Watery drops of blood speckled the backsplash. Jenny was there in a moment with a dishcloth. And I get so like anxiety ridden just Alright, I'll just finish it another time. The book. What's true? Oh no homo? Yeah, I know that's true, yeah. Not that homo would be bad, I mean. So freaking on eggshells, you know what I mean? Like, cause of freaking silliness that people that not you, I'm just saying like silliness that people like interpret stuff, that it's just like, oh my god. That next thing they'll be saying, and she said no homo. like, oh gosh. Anyway, this is really a good book. I'm just saying, you guys know. So how is everybody today? Shall we just, see how everybody is today? I don't know. This phone is like fucking like heating up so badly. I might have to just like end the live stream because this phone is so hot. It's just ridiculous. So actually, it's not even like charging. I have it plugged in, but it's just not charging. So I am gonna end the live stream actually. So Ben, much love to you. Peace, love, and tacos to anybody who stuck through and listened to the story. And I will catch you guys tomorrow, probably.